on the general debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders, a motion whose debate already kicked off on the floor of the House will be resuming this afternoon on that debate. The debate was interrupted on the Wednesday, March 8th, the year 2023, in the afternoon sitting, and this motion is lined up for a debate or for consideration again on the floor of the National Assembly. Pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 42A, subsection 5, various members will be asking questions for reply before the specified committees. The member for Baringo Central, Honorable Joshua Kandie, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration whether the Cabinet Secretary could provide details of the total number of foreigners issued with work permits in Kenya and the duration granted for such work permits. The member will also be seeking to know from the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration to provide details of the number of status of foreigners whose work permits expired as at January the year 2023, and the actions being taken by the ministry to mop out foreigners who could be working in the country illegally following expiry of their work permits. Again, the member will be seeking to understand from the Cabinet Secretary on whether he could explain the steps being taken by the ministry to ensure foreigners are not issued with work permits for skills that are available in the local labor force in order to reduce the unemployment rate among Kenyans. This question by the Honorable Member for Baringo Central, Honorable Joshua Kandie, will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security. The member for Masinga, Honorable Joshua Mwalio, will also be asking the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning to explain reasons for failure by the Kenyatta National Hospital compliance with updated and applicable calculations of such pensions benefits, and state whether the miscalculation results from the misinterpretation of the binding trust deed and regulations of 2001 and 2012. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Wetangula, is in the chambers. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast that is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Good afternoon.
Waheshimiwa, na tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, twakusihi tutazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao wameridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao wamesikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Sergeants, you may ring the division bell.
Well, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula, has directed that the quorum bell be rung at the commencement of the House. If the requisite quorum is not present, then a quorum bell will be rung for 10 minutes, of course, to give way to the members who are yet to walk into the chambers for the sitting to commence. And as you can see, members are walking in. And pursuant to provisions of standing order, various members will this afternoon be asking questions to cabinet secretaries, of course, for reply before specified committees. And the member for Masinga, Honorable Joshua Mwalio, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning to provide details on the status of implementation of a decision on the Retirement Benefits Authority of 18th April, the year 2019, on a pension dispute, and subsequent ruling by the Retirement Benefits Authority Appeals Tribunal dated 21st April 2021, as well as provide a definite date when the affected retirees shall be paid their dues, which have been pending for years and continue to attract interest to date. This question by the Honourable Member. Well, the quorum has been achieved. I will now hand you over to this live broadcast that is brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. My name is Kamchi Menza. Good afternoon.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 22nd of March, 2023, afternoon sitting. 1. Report to Parliament on all new loans contracted by Government of Kenya from 1st September 2022 to 31st September 2022 from the National Treasury and Economic Planning. 2. Performance audit report of the Auditor General on the implementation of the Linda Mama Program, National Health Insurance Fund. Performance audit report of the Auditor General on management of fishing activities in Kenya by the Kenya Fisheries Services. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2022. State Department for Tourism, State Department for Wildlife, State Department for Cooperatives, State Department for Crop Development and Agricultural Research, State Department for Livestock, State Department for Social Security and Protection, State Department for Devolution, State Department for Broadcasting and Telecommunication, State Department for Public Works, State Department for Public Service, State Department for Information, Communication, Technology and Innovation, State Department for University Education and Research, Witness Protection Agency, Kenya National Convention Bureau, Land Settlement Fund, Public Trustees of Kenya, Cooperative Societies Liquidation Fund, State Department for Cooperatives, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Teacher Service Commission, Kenya Urban Support Program, IDA credit number 613 KE, State Department for Housing and Urban Development, Government Press Fund, National Intelligence Service Development Fund, the Judiciary, and lastly, National Youth Service Mechanical and Transport Fund. I lay the paper, Honorable Speaker.
Vice Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 22nd March 2023. Report of the Departmental Committee on Health on its consideration of the other amendment number 2, National Assembly Bill number 42 of 2022. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Abraham Kirwa. Give the Honorable Kirwa the mic next to you.
Oh, yeah. Honorable Speaker, I would like to request the adjournment of the House to discuss loss of property and closure of business due to illegal demonstration. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 33-1, I arise to seek leave for adjournment of the House in order to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance regarding the closure of business premises and destruction of properties during illegal demonstration in the country. Honorable Speaker, on Monday, 20th March 2023, the country experienced demonstration in various parts of the country, including Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, and Kitale, leading to widespread closure of business, destruction of properties, and injuries of citizens. Honorable Speaker, there is a great concern by many Kenyans that should this illegal demonstration continue on a weekly basis, as indicated by the organizers, we are likely to experience further losses of properties and even lives. Net effect of such closure of business and properties will have a negative effect on the already struggling economy, with the agitators and seeking to improve. In addition, Honorable Speaker, the kind of lawlessness being experienced in urban centers will lead to shifting of investors' interest in our country. The Constitution provides that for every right or freedom guaranteed, there is a corresponding obligation and responsibility. No one should engage in threats, lawlessness, and violence, destruction of property, and obstruction of activities by others in any other way infringing on their rights. Honorable Speaker, it's against this background that I seek leave for the adjournment of the House to discuss this matter of great national concern and deliberate on avenues for the way forward. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable member, you need 20 members to stand in your support. It is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Order, you may take your seats, honorable members. You may take your seats. Order. Order. Honorable members, will after the next orders, we'll put the question at order number 8, then go to order number 9. Order, Honorable Wanjala, this is not a public baraza, this is a National Assembly of Kenya, my good friend. If you want to engage a colleague across the aisle, you go to the bar, give the ordinary salutation, cross over, and talk from there. It's more decent that way. So, Honorable Kirwa, after we put the question at order 8, we'll go to order 9. And when we conclude order 9, then we'll give you time to your motion. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Question number 063, the Honorable Member for Baringo Central, Joshua Kandie. Give the honourable member the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 42A5, I rise to ask question number 063 of 2023. And this goes to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the total number of foreigners issued with work permits in Kenya and the duration granted for such work permits? 2. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the number and status of foreigners whose work permits expired as at January 2023, and the actions being taken by the ministry to move out foreigners who could be working in the country illegally following the expiry of their work permits? 3. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the steps being taken by the ministry to ensure foreigners are not issued with work permits for skills that are available in the local labor force in order to reduce unemployment rate among Kenyans? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security, Chairman. 2 weeks. Question 064, Honorable Joshua Mwalio, MP Masinga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning to explain the reasons for failure by the Kenyatta National Hospital, KNH, superannuation scheme, DB scheme, to settle pensions benefits owed to the retirees and its non-compliance with the updated and applicable calculations of such a pension benefits, and state whether the miscalculations results from misinterpretation of the binding trust deed and the regulation TDR of 2001 and the 2012. Number 2, provide details on the status of implementation of a decision of the Retirement Benefits Authority of 18th April 2019 on a pension dispute and the subsequent ruling by the Retirement Benefits Authority Appeals Tribunal, Arabit AT, dated 21st April 2021. Roman 3, provide a definite date when the affected retirees shall be paid their dues, which have been pending for years and continue to attract interest to date.
Thank you, Honorable Mwalio. Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, Chair. Give them 2 weeks. Question 065, Honorable Member for Central Emendi Moses Kirima. Give the Honorable Member the mic. I'm told they're having challenges with the mics.
Thank you,
There
Mr.
are.
Speaker, sir. My question, Mr. Speaker, sir, is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development. When will the disputed boundary between the Tharaka-Nithi and Meru counties along Central Imenti and Tharaka constituencies are going to be demarcated as recommended by the Sakare-Ogongo Land Task Force report of 2009 and further recommended by the Andrew Rigale Land Interim Independent Boundaries Review Commission in its report dated 27th November 2010. Second question. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why residents of Kiamuri B area in Central Imenti constituency are yet to be issued the title deeds despite all preliminary procedures having been concluded in the year 2003, and state when the title deeds will be issued? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Departmental Committee on Lands, Who is the chair? Inform the chair. Johanna Ngeno, is he the chair? Nyamoko, Joash Nyamoko. Is he here? Inform him to bring the answer in 2 weeks. Question 066. Peter Salasia, member from Mumias East. Honorable Salasia, your question?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Could I have the question that I wish to ask the House? To the Cabinet Secretary to respond to this issue, because as you know, as you're all aware, is that everyone is asking when will the price of the fuel get...
Honorable Salasia.
Yeah. Oh, I just read. Okay. Could the Cabinet Secretary, number one, explain the manner in which importation of oil from Aramco Company in Saudi Arabia under the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, with the National Oil Corporation of Kenya, NOC, will affect the retail pump prices of super and diesel fuels in Kenya. Number two, would also wish to ask the following to the Cabinet Secretary to provide the details of the MOU, its impact on the Kenyan fuel market, indicate whether there have been any challenges with respect to execution of the MOU, and if so, how has the ministry addressed the challenges? Number three, to explain the long-term measures that the ministry has put in place to ensure sustainability of supply of fuel at cheaper prices as provided under the MOU. And then the last one is to explain any other plans that the ministry has put in place to guarantee continued affordable fuel prices in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, can you allow me to comment something?
No.
Okay, thank you so much.
Once you ask the question, Honorable Salasia, you wait for the answer. Then your comments and supplementaries will follow the answers that you'll get. Chair, Departmental Committee on Energy. Members of the committee, inform your chair, 2 weeks. Question 067, the member for Vihiga County, Honorable Beatrice Adagala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I wish to ask question number 067 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary, one, shed light on the alleged irregular appointment of the Talanta Hela Council and its committees, and provide details of the form and extent of public participation and the interviews conducted before appointing members of the council and the committees. Two, explain whether the appointment of the members of the Talanta Hela Council and its committees took into account the constitutional requirement of ethnic and regional balance in public appointments. Three, explain the measures that the ministry and its related agencies have taken to ensure timely and meaningful remittances of royalties that are owed to Kenyan artists in light of recent reports of misappropriations of funds collected by the Kenya Association of Music Producers, KAMP, Performer Rights Society of Kenya, PRISK, and the Music Copyright Society of Kenya, MCSK. Explain the ownership of the Music Publishers Association of Kenya, MPAKE, and the manner in which MPAKE has utilized or distributed the more than Kenya shillings 100 million in royalties that it has so far collected on behalf of musicians. Shed more light on the applicable term of office and employment for the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Copyright Board,
Kekobo, who has so far been in office more than 7 years. Lastly, explain the status and details of the ICT tender issued by the Kenya Copyright Board, Kekobo, in conjunction with the collective management organizations on 23rd December 2019 for the supply of National Rights Registry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Chair, Departmental Committee on Sports and Culture. Yes, Chairman. 2 weeks.
Well guided.
Question 068. The Honorable Member for Kipkelion East, Honorable Cherorot Kimtai. Give him the mic. Mama Kericho Songa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. My question goes to Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection. Number one, Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why Kenya's employment design, including within the government, has a predefined requirements for relevant experience in related fields for fresh graduates, thereby causing many potential employees to be left out due to lack of experience? Number two, could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of comparisons of the outcomes of careers to which employees are recruited without experience for on-job training from the very onset, such as the uniformed officers vis-a-vis the careers which recruit from highly trained personnel but requires experience of specified periods before employment? Number three, Mr. Speaker, could Cabinet Secretary explain the evaluation tool used to assess the capacity to deliver for the fresh job seekers who have found it hard to maneuver in the job market, thus lacking an even fair ground to benefit and grow their careers? Number four, could the Cabinet Secretary consider developing a workable policy framework aimed at protecting young professionals and fresh graduates from being subjected to extreme job qualification requirements in order to boost an all-round career growth, as well as minimizing unemployment of educated youth in the country, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kimutai. Chair, Departmental Committee on Labor. Can members of the committee inform your chair? Thank you. That's the end of the questions. Now, statements. A response to the statement by the Honorable Beatrice Kemei, MP, Kericho County. Chairperson, Committee on Labor, Honorable Karemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. After the statement was committed to the committee for consideration, the committee invited the CS for a meeting to receive and consider its submissions. However, the response was deemed inadequate. The committee thereafter resolved to proceed to Kericho County to receive submissions from the county security team, the management of the two companies, that is James Finley and Ekaterra Tea Estate, the shop stewards, and in addition, invited the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection to accompany it for the visit. The committee was able to hold meetings with the invited stakeholders, and Mr. Speaker, out of the engagement and from both oral and written submissions, the committee will be shortly tabling a report of its findings, which will come tomorrow probably. But Mr. Speaker, what the committee found out in Kericho was that there are policies there are enough policies on sexual harassment and exploitation, but while there are policies, we found out that those policies are not fully implemented, as there is a disconnection on the reporting. Those at the lower kind of the company are unable to report on the issues to do with sexual harassment, either because of fear or intimidation. Then also, there is a challenge, Mr. Speaker, because so far as we speak, there is no complainant. There is no one who has complained about the sexual harassment. So even though there are those that have been adversely mentioned, we do not have a single person who has come out to complain so that the process of prosecution can begin. Then also, Mr. Speaker, we noted that we have only one labor officer working in Kericho and in Bomet. And Mr. Speaker, one officer is not enough to go and to address the issues to do with labor issues, including sexual harassment. So, Mr. Speaker, without preempting the report which is supposed to come to this House, we made our own observations, and the CS in the report, in the submission, made the following findings. One, it was confirmed that as per the provisions of the law, that is the Sexual Offences Act and the Employment Act, the two companies had put in place sexual harassment policies and elaborate structures, including informing the workers. Then two, the ministry officials engaged with the workers' representatives, those are the shop stewards and the gender committee members, and they confirmed that they have been trained on sexual harassment and were aware of what was expected of them. Then thirdly, Mr. Speaker, it is a fact that despite the seemingly elaborate and robust structures put in place to prevent and address sexual harassment cases, the vice is still being experienced in the two companies, which indicate structural disconnect. There seems to be a cloud of fear in reporting to the managers and the tendency of some managers to cover their colleagues so that the matter do not reach the top leadership. Mr. Speaker, the county labor officer reported that there has never been any labor complaint or trained dispute on sexual harassment reported to his office by individual workers or trade union in the last 7 years. So, Mr. Speaker, finally, the ministry in the submission are committed to encourage initiatives to partner with other agencies to encourage workers to report any negative vices affecting their lives to competent authorities so that remedies can be found. So, Honorable Speaker, I beg to table this statement before the House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Beatrice Kemei, do you have any supplementary to follow up on that? Give Honorable Kemei, there you are, on your left.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first, I want to appreciate the Committee of Labor who went to Kericho on fact-finding. And as much as I appreciate, I think the chair was too brief, but I believe what he has stapled will be looked more into. And when the time for, I believe, Mr. Speaker, there will be time maybe to debate on the same. And however, I would say that what the ministry has done is sufficient and satisfactory. But from my experience with the workers, because at least at some point I joined the committee, is the fact that sexual harassment is real and to some extent has been normalized so that some of these workers may not report the cases to the managers. There's also general perception that the people working in the tea estates or the workers in the tea estates are available for sex, which should not be the case. And many of them may not report because of stigmatization. There is that fear of losing their jobs, and that is why they may not come out to report on the same. So from the shop stewards, Mr. Speaker, there's a dislink between them and the managers, the workers and the managers. There's a very wide gap between the two. And from that finding, it is very difficult for the workers to go and talk to the managers. So that one makes it difficult for them to come out very strongly against this, the sexual harassment. And another thing that I also found out when we met with the workers is that many of them, they have their working conditions being poor, their pay is poor, so at some point they yield to those, to whatever advancements.
Ms. Kamei,
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
what you should be doing, having listened to the chair of the committee, is areas where you need further clarity. You ask further questions.
Thank you. I'm guided.
So that they can note to respond either now or at a later date. As it is, you are also making a statement.
Okay, thank you. I'm guided, Mr. Speaker. And my other point of concern is what the management has done in line with the issues of this sexual harassment. If it is real in the ground, what have they done so far that will make sure that it comes to an end or it is reduced, Mr. Speaker? And then the issue of the one officer of labor. What is the plan in line with that, with employment of many of them? Because if it is only one covering Kericho and Bomet, then it is very difficult, and they visit once in a year. So that one is difficult. What is the plan in line with that? Employing more of this so that they are able to reach issues of sexual harassment among many, many others. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hassan Kamkunji, on the same issue?
Yes, and related to, first of all, I wanted to say, Mr. Speaker, that it's a matter of grave concern that the ministry responsible for this matter has not given this issue of sexual harassment, which is now an international topic. It was exposed in the BBC, a big BBC Panorama documentary, in which these cases were spelled out, and it has become a big issue to the two British companies that are involved in this particular issue. And then, in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, I did ask you in a statement, I requested that this lack of proper response to questions and statement by the various ministries that we have raised here is a matter of major concern, because it appears as if the executive, the cabinet secretaries, are not taking this house very seriously. For example, since October, I've asked not less than 5 statements, and I haven't received a single answer to them. And some of them are now becoming less topical. At that time, they were much more of urgency. So I had requested for your guidance on how we should address this particular problem, because I see here in the House that many of the questions or the statements are not answered to the satisfaction of the Member of Parliament. And there's no opportunity to interrogate and engage the cabinet secretaries directly or in committee sessions. So the point is, why would we ask questions and statements if the other side is not taking it with the seriousness it is required? Therefore, asking for your guidance on that and what needs to be done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Hassan Hassan, I hear you, and your concern, you have raised it with me. Remember that the amendments to the standing orders for ministers to appear before this House to answer to your questions takes effect from tomorrow. But since tomorrow you are taking a short recess, as soon as we come back after recess, members of cabinet will start appearing here to answer your questions. In the amendments to the standing orders and the motion you passed here, you did say that questions that were asked before 23rd will be answered in committees. Now, I will direct the clerk to compile all the questions that are pending before committees and furnish the list to my office so that we can give further direction to the chairman of committees, including your 5 questions. Thank you. Yes, Mother Wangari, Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Karemba, you should take the supplementaries. When it's done, I'll give you an opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And I also want to join Honorable Hassan in noting that this issue was not a matter of Kericho. It was a national issue. It was an international issue. And matters sexual assault, Mr. Speaker, are not easy even for the women to report. And that is why you would see no direct complainant, because they fear for their lives, they fear for their families, they even fear losing their jobs, which are very scarce, Mr. Speaker. But my follow-up question, Mr. Speaker, is that we saw in that BBC documentary or expose that some same people who actually were harassing these women were reciting the anti-harassment laws in the companies. So my question would be, and follow-up question would be, what has these 2 companies done at all in terms of implementing their own regulations, in terms of summoning those managers, Mr. Speaker, and more importantly, the trust to our institutions, the DCI, just from that BBC documentary, and we can get even that reporter who is a Kenyan to actually be under oath. Can that serve as a way of starting instituting measures to stem this very rampant issue in that region? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Karemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there was one person, Mr. John Chepochok, who was notoriously mentioned in the submissions. And Mr. Speaker, I wish to inform the House that the James Finley Company suspended one John Chepochok. He was contracted to look for workers. And he was doing that for a couple of years from 2017. But since after the expos, his services were stopped. And then also, Mr. Speaker, the James Finley decided now to absorb all the employees and to employ them without contracting. So that is one of the decisions that was arrived at by the James Finley. At the Ekatera company, which is formerly Unilever, we found that the management was doing something. There were cases that had been reported, but each of those cases, Mr. Speaker, had been reported with the criminal investigations offices, and some were matters in court, some had been already dealt with, and others are cases that are ongoing in court. So we found out that this issue of the BBC expos was not the only issue that had been reported, but several other cases had been reported. Some have already been dealt with, while others are ongoing. Then also, I want to associate myself with the sentiment from the honorable member from Kamukoji that, Mr. Speaker, it is time now the CSS come here, because in their submissions, we found out that they are giving us very inadequate details. So when they come here, we will be able to ask them supplementary questions, and I don't think they will be coming here without being adequately prepared. Mr. Speaker, I have heard from the Honorable Martha. And it is true. While the women, the workers, and mostly the women in these two companies were agreeing with us that there has been sexual exploitation and harassment in those two companies, most of them who even have contracted HIV were not willing to come out and report. And the reason was they believe that if they report, they will be fired. Secondly, stigmatization. No one wants to be seen on TV and in the screens as having been one of the victims. But I also want to agree with the Honorable, because that is also contained in our report, which will be tabled shortly and possibly tomorrow, that investigations through our able DCI officers should begin with the person who did the expose. We are considering requesting him to be the person to be complained, so that the process of prosecuting those accused can begin, since right now we do not have anyone complaining. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Yes, Colonel Russell. Give the mic to Honorable Russell.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the question that has been raised by the member for Kericho is a gravitas question. It is heavy in that rights of Kenyans is being violated, maybe because they are poor or maybe because they are just low-paid workers. The Honorable Chair and also the member have agreed that there is sexual abuse that is going on. Whether there are witnesses coming forward or not, I think this is an issue that must be investigated. The minister, this question should not be laid aside. When the minister comes, then this should be one of the questions that the minister must answer to this House. Why such violation take place, and yet we hide our heads in the sand just because Finlay is one of the major companies in Kenya dealing with tea, and they pay taxes. I think it's not about taxes. It is about the dignity of Kenyans that we must not look away. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Justice Kemei. Give the mic to Honorable Kemei. You may use the portable mic being brought to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity you've given me. I also want to add my voice on sexual exploitation by the multinationals that are based in Kericho. Mr. Speaker, out of desperation, our people go to the tea estates to seek for employment. Mr. Speaker, we do not expect the two companies, and indeed any other investment in Kericho, to exploit our people simply because they've got no means of earning a livelihood at the moment.
Ask the chairman a question.
Chairman, we would like, Chairman, when you provide the answers, to specifically look at women that have been exploited in Kericho, and particularly those that come from Ainamoi constituencies, Belgut constituency, Bureti, and Sigawetuen constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oundo, Karemba, I hope you are recording. Give the mic to Honorable Oundo across the floor, or give him, if the mic is not working, give him the...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Luckily enough, mine is working. And I want to advise, probably ask my colleague, the chair, to probably, as he asked for supplementary, please add this question. Sexual harassment is not only confined to tea farms. It's not only confined to the agricultural sector. It cuts across the entire workforce where women seek work. What is the ministry doing to sensitize women, whether affected or not, to be courageous enough and report the cases to the labor officers? Because indeed, Honorable Speaker, keeping quiet only damages and entrenches the practice. But if the women can come out boldly and complain and stand up for their right, we'll eliminate these sexual violence cases. Honorable Speaker, occasionally receive complaints that so-and-so has refused to employ me because I've not accepted to his advances, which is a very demeaning, humiliating exercise. What is the ministry doing to sensitize women, build the capacity to ensure that women speak loudly on the same? Finally, Honorable Speaker, we have women reps in this parliament, 47 of them. Where is their voice? Where is the combined and concerted voice in respect of the rampant case of sexual harassment amongst women workers in this country? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
To be fair to the women, this question was brought by a woman rep of Kericho. So that comment is not entirely fair, Honorable Undo. Elachi, give Karemba, you are recording the interventions
Thank you.
and supplementaries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I speak to the chair, I just want to tell Professor that this statement was brought in with me and the woman rep of Kericho. It was women who came to cry in this house. Mr. Speaker, my question to the chair, so that he adds, is one, this is an issue that is already in court in London. We have 2,000 workers of Kericho who have sued this company. We would want to know what the ministry is going to do to support them in their case that is in Scottish, and it's about to start in the month of April. Number two, even as we speak about all these issues, we had women who were affected with HIV/AIDS. We want to know, what is the government going to do to the officers who affected these women? Because even as we speak of rape, you rape and you affect is even more. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate that we are talking this in Kenya when we have the sexual offences bill, when we have many bills to deal with this matter. And therefore, as much as the companies decided to suspend the officers, indeed the officers, Mr. Speaker, must be taken to court. So I would wish the chairman to just ensure their case is being taken now by government. It is a huge case. Many workers who work in these tea farms are sacked the moment you start having back problems. You are now told to leave work. So we want to know, what are we going to do with the many workers who have left just because they became sick because of work? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Johanna Ngeno. Karemba, I hope you are noting all those. Yes. Give Johanna Ngeno mic.
Thank you, Speaker. I also want to know from the chair what penalties the ministry is subscribing on those particular companies which are found to be actually promoting the sexual harassments. I remember, Speaker, one of the companies in the UK, I think it was James Williamson.
Is it promoting or condoning?
Condoning.
It appeared condoning much more than promoting.
Thank you, Speaker. I remember there's a company in the US, in the UK, Mr. Speaker, which is actually having an association, business association with the James Findlay and the Katera companies in Kericho, which actually disassociated itself from this company after this sexual harassment issue came up. That is a company in the UK. What have we done ourselves in our country, especially the ministry, so that the companies which are allowing their members or their employees to exercise this particular criminal activity are also banned or are given serious penalties? Mr. Speaker, secondly, this is an issue that came in light of machines which have flooded the tea estates all over the country, not only Kericho, even in Kiambu, in so many other areas, forcing so many people to be unemployed, and those few that go for those opportunities, they get harassed. What has also the ministry done, especially on that particular issue of machines, which have caused a lot of problems in this country, Mr. Speaker? As much as we would want to mechanize farming, we want to mechanize almost everything, Mr. Speaker, there are opportunities which are meant to safeguard the interest of the people of this republic, and we cannot allow that to happen. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish the chair also, as a follow-up question, look into that issue of machines, which has actually helped out people who have been getting their livelihoods from these particular estates. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Naomi Wako, we should bring this to an end. Naomi, then Mukami, and we. Then after Naomi Karemba, you can answer those. Then I'll give another three, Changamwe, Mukami, and the CTNA. Is there any other member who is there?
No, this is Naivasha, Mr. Speaker.
No, I know the difference between Naivasha and CTNA.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important statement, motion. And I want to take this opportunity to also congratulate Women Rep Kericho for bringing out this matter that has affected very families and affected many women in that industry. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know very well that if the woman rep did not bring this out, this matter would have been still hidden up to now and even maybe forever. But she has taken a very bold step to bring this matter out and to expose the practice